Hello, good morning. It's the 12th of March, and I am reading After We Collided by Todd. I did originally do a video earlier, but for some reason my phone deleted it. So I'm having to do two videos now, sort of back to back. So I can only apologise for that. So I recently just briefly spoke about Tessa and how obviously her relationship with her mother isn't very positive. At the moment, Tessa is homeless. She doesn't want to go back to the dorms because she can't. This is from chapter 19 to 22, by the way. Because there isn't anywhere for her to go. Landon actually paid all of her dorm fees up and basically said she wasn't living there anymore. She's rented an apartment with Landon. They've leased it, but she doesn't want to go back there either. And her mum has said, well, why don't you spend Christmas with me? And again, she's trying to use every trick, every excuse in the book not to go home. And even though Landon has said, hey, my mum and dad don't mind you staying with us over Christmas, she doesn't want to impose. So at the moment, she's in a motel. She knows a little bit more about Trevor and how over Christmas, because he doesn't have any family anymore because his mother passed away, he volunteers at a homeless shelter. I mean, if that's not enough to melt your heart, I don't know what is. I mean, there's this guy, he obviously is into tests, he's a little bit older, he's a little bit more mature, he's a little bit more refined, he's an accountant. But instead, she's still pining after Landon's stepbrother, Hardin. I mean, even Landon, if he wasn't in a relationship with his girlfriend, who is thinking about transferring colleges to go and be with her in New York, I would have assumed they would have got together. But Tess and Hardin, they've got this fueled, toxic, love-hate relationship. And yet he does these things for her, which, although they are a little bit on the stalking side, so it's a bit worrying. Like, he gets her car repainted, he takes her car to be fixed when it's broken down while she's in Seattle. He has it valeted. He comes to see her when she's in Seattle because he thinks she's in danger. And then he just messes everything up by losing his temper. So she finally gets her car back. She's staying in this motel. And then all of a sudden, she goes to the car and sees that he's left her a birthday present. Problem is, he's probably brought this for her before they broke up, just like the tickets he spent $2,000 on to take her to London for Christmas. So yeah, I would be angry at my friends for letting the cat out of the bag when they could have just waited until the new year. But instead, he spent all this money. Okay, it probably wasn't even his. It was probably money he won from the bet from sleeping with Tess, but still. And he buys her a Kindle, which is something she'd never do herself. And he's put all these books on there that she loves to read, that he's read. And it's so romantic because in the movie, the first movie after, they stay in the library and he reads to her in the library. That doesn't happen in the book. But so I did like that in the movie. It was quite sweet that, he takes the time to read to her. They read to each other. I've had a relationship with somebody who used to do that for me. And it is really, really nice. It's really sweet, sincere when somebody takes the effort to sit there and read to you and you fall asleep listening to the sound of their voice. I know it might sound really sad and pathetic, but, to have that confidence as well to read aloud to someone. You're forced to do it when you're at school as part of English language and English literature. You have to read aloud, you have to participate in discussions, and it can be quite intimidating. So for somebody as they're transitioning into adulthood, to still be comfortable with themselves and be happy to do that for someone, I think it's really sweet and romantic. That's just my own personal opinion. So we're on chapter 22, and Landon's come to visit her because it's her birthday, and he's basically confessed to Tessa that Hardin still loves him, because he must love his brother. Yeah, they had this moment, but that he still loves Tessa, and that he shouldn't forgive her for what he did, but it's obvious he still cares about her, because he's never really cared about anyone. And I don't know whether to be flattered or insulted if someone was to say that, but either way. So she's decided to lie to her mom. She doesn't want to go back home for Christmas, probably because she doesn't want to see Noah. And she doesn't want her mother going on and on about how Noah's the best thing since sliced bread. She needs to marry Noah. They need to get back into a relationship. Noah is her future. Hardin is her past. You can do better than him. And so she's decided she's going to go back to the apartment for Christmas, believing that Hardin will not be there because he's supposed to be in London. But as the reader, we know that Hardin is not going to London and that his mother is actually coming to visit him over Christmas now. So what is going to happen? That is the question. But again, it's like, in a way, in the second book, you can see how their relationship has changed. Yes, he has a job, she has a job, but at the same time, she is trying to move on. I'm not saying she's moved on positively. I mean, she's working for a company that endorses underage drinking. He left there, he works for another publishing house by the sound of it, but yet he's still hanging around with people that like to drink, like to smoke, every single week. He's getting a bit tired of the whole scene. It's even mentioned that he's finding it a little bit tedious. He's angry at his friends, but he still hangs with them. They admit that they're happy that Tessa knows that it was all this huge bet. A lot of the guys there were hoping that now Tess had kind of given it up sort of attitude. She would just sort of drop her pants for anyone. So again, he's part of him is an adult. Part of him has moved on. He's got a job. He's got an apartment. He's trying to establish his individuality. His level of maturity has increased. But yet he's still falling back onto what he finds to be familiar. And again, is that the sort of thing you want to be doing? Getting back into these sort of like habitual habits and addictions? It was clear at the wedding that even his grandma, who wasn't mentioned in the film, was concerned for his well-being. Everyone was saying how they'd seen a change in him because of Tessa. Yet, the moment she's out of his life, he's back to drinking, he's back to smoking, he's back to spending time with inappropriate partners. So, if you're going to change, it should be for yourself and not for somebody else. I mean, it's easy to say that. Everybody does it on some level. But again, Kim is saying to Tess, you've got to train him. Men are idiots. If you want him to be a certain way with you, you've got to set the ground rules. You cannot be a doormat. So even she, although she's clearly older than Tess, more mature than her, she's dating a Vance, Christian Vance, who's the owner of Vance Publishing, but she is dating him and understands he has a child from his previous marriage. His wife did not divorce him, she actually passed away. But it's very hard to compete with the debt. I know this from past experience. So it's very interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the story unfolds. But at the same time, I've not seen the second film, so I can't compare the book to the movie. So we shall see how things go, and thank you again for your time.